and welcome to this edition of the CrushCast. I'm Jesse Morrison, and today we have a very special guest, legendary Ithaca College baseball coach, George Valesente. Coach, how are you doing during all of this crazy times?
Retirement is challenging from my standpoint after having 50 years of being on a schedule. So it's actually the coronavirus pandemic is, if it can have any kind of a positive thing, which there are some things coming out of it, it sort of made everybody else sort of sequester in like I was sort of doing. So, but we're getting through it. My wife has been retired and she's been great. And the golf course is opened early enough to allow me to get exercise and be out doing that and losing some money to friends, but having a great time. But it's going well.
And so I just want to go back all the way to the 1960s when you yourself played 3 sports at Ithaca College. What was it like playing 3 sports, and going to school at the same time? College, we see it in high school, but we don't see many collegiate 3-sport athletes.
Well, first of all, it wasn't unusual back then. There were a lot of at least 2, and there were quite a few 3-sport athletes. Ithaca College had a large phys ed major program, which I was enrolled in, that physical education, and exercise science and so on, all that, and recreation. So as freshmen, we were mandated to play a fall and a spring sport. You had to be on a team, they couldn't cut you. So you right away got into a 2-sport deal right away as a freshman. So it was a great thing. I thought I loved going from one sport to the other. I hated to be inactive. I loved all the sports. I played football in high school, but at Ithaca, I wasn't going to play football, so I jumped into the soccer program as the other alternative. It was either that or cross country, so I wasn't going to do that. But it was a great experience. I had different coaches each year, had different friends each year. The competitions were great. We played, particularly in baseball, we played basically a Division I schedule back then. And so it was a great experience. I wouldn't exchange it for anything. I loved doing it, and I would definitely do it again. As far as the courses were concerned, being a phys ed major, they were geared around your ability to get to practices at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they made concessions for that because they knew it was a primary part of the major itself.
And you moved on to pitch in the minor leagues after you were done at Ithaca. You reached all the way to AAA, almost the big leagues. What was that whole experience like in the minor leagues?
First, before it was a dream of mine to play professional baseball. I think growing up as a child, the Yankees were a big deal. Mickey Mantle was a big deal. And basically it was the only TV channel that we could get to watch a baseball game. So, I was really, really geared in that. But my brother also played professional baseball. He's 4 years older than I, graduated from Ithaca, and he played in the Cubs organization and then moved on to coach, big time football. But fortunately, out of Ithaca, I was able to secure a contract, basically as a free agent with the Washington Senators at that time, which are the Texas Rangers currently. But it's ironic too, where I was at spring training one day, and the fellow that bought the Washington Senators was named Bob Short, and he came out to spring training one morning, gathers everybody in, and he goes, "Hello, I'm Bob Short of that," and we all knew that he was the owner. He said, "I'd like to introduce the new manager of the Washington Senators." He said, "I'd like you to meet Ted Williams." Well, Ted Williams walked out of the crowd. We didn't know he was there. And it was like, wow, that's Ted Williams. That was impressive. But that experience was tremendous. I learned a lot. I thought it was very unusual that they were paying me to play a game that I'd played all my life free and loved it. I worked hard. I wasn't as gifted as a lot of the other athletes, but with determination and using my head, and being smart and making the progress, I was able to do that. So it was a great experience. Again, met a lot of people, traveled all over the place, and stayed in the lower minor leagues for $3 a day meal money, and got up to AAA where it was maybe $20 or $25 a day meal money. But it was a great experience and one that I'll always cherish.
So you mentioned that you met Ted Williams. Just what was that experience like? I mean, he's one of the greats.
It was so unusual too, because we never expected it. And here's, he almost looked like he was bigger than life. He's 6'4", handsome, still had the wavy black hair. He had a blue nylon windbreaker on. And he spoke to the group for a while, and then we broke off into our groups and teams and fields, and he started walking around. Well, another interesting part of that was that that's the year I broke with the AAA team in Buffalo. Um, Hector Lopez, I don't know if Jesse, if you know that name or not, but Hector Lopez was an outfielder for the New York Yankees during their heyday. And he was in camp just trying to get a job at AAA and keep on playing. Well, Ted Williams met him and, hey, Hector, how you doing? They knew each other. Well, then they made him the AAA manager for the Buffalo team, which is so how funny. So when I went to Buffalo to play, Hector Lopez was the manager, and sort of a very quiet, astute kind of guy, kind of stuff. But so that was the story of that. But he was, I've seen a lot of great athletes and stars, but he was very impressive immediately when he stepped out. It was like, wow, this is Ted Williams, the greatest probably hitter of all time, kind of thing. And he was very congenial and he great to get presentation to everybody and to encourage everybody to just work hard and never just going to stroll around. So he always knew where he was, wherever he was walking. You always watched him.
So after you were done with your playing career, you went on to coach Brockport, New Paltz, Maritime. Those were that was before you got to Ithaca. Just what were those early coaching experiences like for you?
Another step back, when I was playing professional baseball, I would come home in the off season. And in the off season, I would work at Cornell University. My brother was over there as an assistant football coach, and I would teach phys ed classes and coach. I was assistant soccer and assistant basketball, like the JV teams, and then I would help the baseball team in the cage, and then I would go to spring training. Well, when that was done, I moved back to Ithaca and got my master's in physical education, and there I had grad assistantships in a couple of sports. One of them was baseball. So at the end of that spring season, basically what happened was we were at a wedding, my brother and I, and his former teammate was the head coach of Brockport, and he was stepping down. So this was August 15th, Jess. And school started like in 2 weeks, and Brockport did not have a baseball coach. Well, one phone call led to another. Can you be in my office on Monday? I got there. They checked my blood pressure, and they said, good, you got the job. I got hired at Brockport because they needed someone, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. So that's how that started. So I was 2 years at Brockport, 2 years at New Paltz, 2 years at the New York Maritime College. And then the Ithaca job opened up. And the AD at the time was formerly the trainer when I was here at my grad assistantship. And I knew him quite well and interviewed, and again, was blessed to be offered that job.
And did you want to go into coaching like while you were playing? Was that like a dream of yours, or did it just kind of happen?
I coached so many sports. Like I said, I coached soccer, basketball, and baseball at the earlier kind of thing. I wasn't quite sure which direction to go, and I really was unemployed when I got released and I finished my master's. And baseball opportunity came around, and I thought, well, good, that's great. So once I got into the baseball world, there was just no question that I was going to stay there. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot. It was certainly a lot different back then with regard to recruiting and all that, but Brockport had, a great phys ed majors program. We had some very good athletes, and it was great, very challenging for me, from that standpoint. And it just seemed that I was going to stay in the baseball world. My brother was in the football world at that time, and that was a little bit of a rat race compared to what I was doing. So I sort of enjoyed staying in the baseball world. I did apply for a lot of D1 jobs back then. I had this aspiration to be a D1 coach at the time, and I never was fortunate enough to get any of them, which was a blessing. It was truly a blessing.
And you mentioned your brother. Did you have any cool experiences, being around him ever? And did he get you into any cool NFL games or anything at any time?
Oh, yes. He taught me my left-handed pickoff move when he was in college. He learned that from Coach Freeman, who I played for. So that was a wonderful thing. But he always was very supportive of me. When we were younger, of course, if I got out of line, he bopped me around a couple of times to straighten me out. But when he was coaching with the Green Bay Packers during the Brett Favre era, and they were in 2 Super Bowls. The first one they won, they beat New England. The second one, they were playing Denver in San Diego. So they invited my wife and I there. We went to that game. We stayed at the hotel with the players, had a room right in the section where all the players were and all the administrators. I watched their practices. I was in their meeting rooms, in their locker room up in Green Bay, and I had the whole gamut of it. Went to practices, met Reggie White, Brett Favre played catch with my son. So it was, I have shirts and balls signed by both of them. And so he was very instrumental. Actually, he helped me get my foot in the door at Brockport, and so he's been very instrumental in my life and my career. And I owe a great deal to him. I owe pretty much all of my successes to him.
That's awesome. And going back to Ithaca, you're hired in '78. Y'all won the national title in 1980. How did it happen so quickly that y'all were able to just turn into this power?
Pretty lucky, I suppose, Jess. Basically, when I got there, there were a lot of very good players. Coach Wood had done a great job in recruiting, and we had some players that were, pretty well experienced. And actually, when I got there the year before, I think they had gotten into the World Series, but got knocked out early, so they had that experience. We had two freshmen come in that made a big difference: Mark Fagan and David Axenfeld, both pitchers, and they ended up. Fagan was a pitcher, DH for us, batted fourth, big, strong player, and actually was a left-handed pitcher, a great year. So those two made a big difference in that team, and as that team came together, it wasn't a matter of me having to push them at all. It was just a matter of pushing the buttons. They were pretty self-directed. They knew how to win. They knew that they were playing to win, and that's all they cared about. And it was an enjoyable season. I think we led the nation in ERA. We led the nation in batting average. We led the nation in several offensive and particularly defensive categories with that team. So it was a very exciting team, and we had power, we had speed, we had good pitching. Coach's dream, and I fortunately did not screw it up.
Then 8 years later, y'all won again. What was special about that team that year?
Well, in between, we lost a couple of times. I think we finished third one time or second a couple of times, and that's very disheartening. The second time I said it, and I didn't mean it put down to 80, but the second time was more rewarding in the fact that the first time you go, you're not quite sure what you're doing, and you're just going through it, and it's a great experience, and you're trying to do the best you can. Well, the second time you're planning for it. I mean, you're really planning for it. You're you're thinking of it. You're trying to get there. You're trying to figure out what to do. So basically in '88, when we won it again, the team didn't play well for a lot of the season, and then finally just really came together, greatly at the end, and again played with that atmosphere of just having to figure out how to win. So having tried to lay the groundwork, those were all our recruits that we had brought in, and we sort of the building blocks of trying to accomplish it was, I think, the most satisfying.
So 41 years, 35 postseason berths, no losing seasons, over 1,000 wins. List goes on with all the accomplishments. How did you have so much success? How did the team have so much success during your time as head coach?
Well, I never worried about the number of wins. It was like, who we playing tomorrow? When's the next game? That never entered my mind. I had no goals to try to win 1,000 games. I had no goals I wanted to try to win the national championship, of course. And we all spoke the same language. We believed in the same things. We believed in the same attitude, discipline of the players, determination, hustle, hard work. Frank Fazio and I were teammates at Ithaca, and he was with me for all of that, and he was our hitting coach. And I don't know if we ever hit under 300 as a team, but on top of that, he was also great connector with the young men. If they were having problems understanding what I was saying to them or what it meant, he was able to explain it and keep the pressure off of me so that I could concentrate on the team and the games. Jeff Wright, another former Ithaca College player who came along, he was in our infield, took care of our infield. And John McNally took care of the catchers in the outfield and organization. So the three of us were very good friends, and we sort of spoke the same language. So the ability, to have them with me and have them be able to do the things that we do, we always got along. We never argued. We disagreed, and we talked about it, but then we would come up with a decision. But they were instrumental. They were the keys. And then, of course, we were able to recruit pretty well back then. We were very attractive. We had a lot of young people in New York area and New Jersey and Connecticut and that were interested in coming to Ithaca. We had a number of players that were going off signing professionally, which they were really excited about. And, we offered a pretty exciting program. We offered a spring trip. We were going to Florida for a while. Then we started going to California, which was exciting. And so it just kept rolling, and it became just, again, a fantastic experience that very few can claim to.
So you mentioned earlier that it was a blessing that you've never gotten to Division One. Why did you never try to go up higher, or and yeah, just why did you never try to go up to a higher level, and why did you stay at Ithaca for so many years?
Well, I'm an Ithaca grad, and all I think I needed, and I didn't realize it, was a challenge of the coaching and trying to be successful with a team. My brother was a Division One football coach, and he wasn't in charge of his own life. In other words, he was on the road recruiting all the time. They had numerous things going on, so he would leave the house at 7 a.m. or 6:30 and get home at 11 o'clock at night. And he told me one time, he said, never got to see my family grow up. Well, when I got here, I had the challenge, but I was able to have a life. I wasn't recruiting every weekend and all the way on the road. I was able to spend time with my wife and my children. I had a daughter and a son who both were athletes. Both went to Division One schools on athletic scholarships. My daughter for hockey at Clarkson and my son for baseball at St. Joe's. And my wife was, extremely supportive, and she had a nice, wonderful job here. So, I mean, this was the best of both worlds, Jess. I mean, I had the challenge, I had the coaching, I had good athletes, I had great assistant coaches who were friends, and my family. And blessings cannot be distributed to any person any more than what I got. So I'm so thankful, and that's why I say I'm thankful I never took a Division One job, because my life would have been totally different. And I'm really glad that nobody found me interesting enough to do it. I was offered a position up in the Cape Cod League back in the 80s, and I turned that down because it was going to hamper on being among my family, number one, and number two is recruiting. Um, so that's basically the story of that. And again, unbeknownst to me, it turned out to be the right thing to do.
Definitely. So obviously we are a collegiate summer wooden bat league team. Just in your experience, how much does that help with player development playing in those collegiate leagues?
Well, I think it's really important that they play. I think it's important that they play with and against some Division One players and realize that the difference is not that great. Um, and I played 4 summers of baseball in Canada. They never really had summer leagues around here for the college players, so I went to Canada and played 4 summers. We played about 3, 4 times a week up there. Early in my career up there, the ironic part too was that a lot of the players on the other team were NHL players,
Hmm.
National Hockey League players, who didn't have anything to do in the offseason because they didn't have no ice and nobody was lifting weights. And these guys played on these teams, and boy, could they hit a fastball. They couldn't hit a curveball, but their eye-hand coordination was superb. And they were tough. They were tough. And even on our team, we had some of them, and they talked hockey all the time. And the badge of courage there was to not have front teeth. You had your implant, but because of the hockey, so I really think it's great. There's a little bit of I think a misread on some of it. I think the hitting and the position players get a lot out of it, but the pitchers I think don't, because of the fact that they're using wooden bats and it's so much easier to pitch against wooden bats. So sometimes they get a little bit of a false read. The only other negative would be going from wooden bats back to metal bats is a little bit of an adjustment, because the metal bats are so comfortable in your hand that you think you can hit the ball another 5 miles farther than you've been hitting it, and sometimes that causes an issue. But I believe it's a great experience, and I think our players should go and do it, and learn from it and come back, and they should elevate. Like Tim LeCastro, Tucker Healy, their game when they came back, had elevated. Some players have struggled because I think they thought that there was going to be easy pickings and come back here. But baseball is baseball, and it's not so much the opponent that can do you in, but it's the game itself. So it's a great experience. I know that the Cortland Crush, they do a great job. I know Coach McConnell does an outstanding job. Our players love to play for him. He's a very player-oriented young man, and I've watched him a bunch of play a number of times. They're very aggressive. He likes to run. He likes to do things, and our gentlemen have really enjoyed playing for him. And I would send anybody to him that I could.
So you mentioned Tim LeCastro. He's one of those players that is proving that the level of D1 to D3 or whatever levels are not that far apart. He's out here where I am, Arizona, with the Diamondbacks. He had a great year. Season just wrapped up yesterday. But yeah, just what made him so special, and did you see him being this successful in Major League Baseball?
He played for a former player of ours who played professional baseball, T.J. Gamba, coached him at Auburn High School. And I guess Tim literally was interested in going to Lemoyne, but Lemoyne wasn't interested in him at the time. They didn't want to spend any scholarship money on him. And that was the best thing for us. So I went up to watch him play, and I wasn't honestly overly impressed. He was a little skinny young man. He could run a little bit. He had a lot of energy. So you had to sort of project. And I was interested because he could run and he seemed to have a real upbeat. And of course, I have a lot of respect for TJ Gamba, who also worked with us for a couple of years. So when he got here, he struggled a little bit, but he never, ever lost his enthusiasm. He never, ever lost his love. He loved to be at practice. He loved to do anything there was to do with baseball and the game itself. And as he progressed into his sophomore year, you could see him start to blossom. Now he was playing shortstop. He was making throwing errors, but his glove was great. He was getting to a lot of balls, and he just had this magnetism to him from a player standpoint. In his junior year, he had certainly the breakout year. He stole 40 bases in 41 attempts. He was hit 27 times by pitches. One time he was thrown out, he thought he was safe, so he would have had 41 out of 41. He hit over 400 with about 6 or 8 home runs. And he had a magnificent year. So as far as I didn't have a steal sign for him, he could steal when he wanted to. I would put the steal sign on if I didn't want him to run in that particular case. So that was the only thing we did there. So he was basically on his own, very instinctive. But the best thing I can say about him, and other than he's a wonderful young man, is he was the best player on our team, right? And the most well-liked. That's an accomplishment within itself. And his play and his attitude and his determination elevated everybody around him. I never once had to holler at him to hustle or to every day after practice his junior year, he was sweeping out the dugouts. Who does that when you're leading the league and about everything there is to lead the league in? So, I was happy for him when he signed and sorry to see him go, but am I unbelievably, hard to believe that he made it? Well, no, I'm not. But if you stop and think about it, he's not of the norm. He's not a home run hitter. He's not a power guy. He's not a big guy, but he made it to the big leagues on hard work, hustle, determination, stealing bases, getting hit by pitches, just doing all the little things that were so important in the 80s and 90s in baseball that have sort of gone by the wayside. And as well, you watch him a lot, you tell me he's exciting to watch.
Yeah.
He walks fast. Everything is upbeat, and he's got a smile on his face 99.9% of the time. Only see him get mad once when he struck out in the World Series in '93. That's it. Other than that, he was always with it. So I'm happy, so happy for him, so happy for him.
Have you gotten the chance to see him play in person? I know this year, obviously, no fans, but the past couple of years when he was up in the big leagues.
We went down to a Mets game, but he didn't play that day. And I ran into his mom and dad, and there was a bunch of others of his teammates were there. So it was a really nice reunion from that standpoint. But we didn't get to see him play that day. So I haven't really, got to see him play in person, kind of thing. But I have the MLB package, and I'm certainly watching that at night as much as I can stay awake for some of the games. But we were sort of hoping to come out there and get to see him and stay a week or two out in Scottsdale, because I heard Scottsdale is an awesome place. So
it's beautiful.
My brother coached at Tucson, so I'm familiar with sort of the Arizona area. So he was at the University of Arizona for several years.
Okay, cool. And then 2015, you got your 1,000th win. Just what was that experience like, getting your 1,000th win?
I think that was at Pomona Pitzer out in California. We were playing Pomona Pitzer, and there was a photographer that was sort of hanging around that day. And he said to me, look, I'm going to be taking some photographs. The the Ithaca newspaper wants some photographs. I thought, okay, well, what's the big deal? I had no idea. I had no idea. In fact, there were days I would go into admissions office and they'd say, congratulations. And I said, yeah, thanks for what? And they go, well, you just won your 400th game. Oh, that's great. So I didn't know this was going on. So anyway, we win the game and I call the team in and we're sort of talking. And in fact, I got the picture of it. I get the bucket dumped on me, the bucket of ice water. And that's when I find out that, oh, coach, you just won your 1000th game. And I said, wow, man, fantastic. It was great. And we had another game that day. And I was soaking wet. And it was a cool day.
Ooh.
And we had to go to another ballpark. So a former player of mine by the name of Craig Nells was there visiting because he was up in San Francisco. So I had to sit in the van with the heaters on, and he went and got some of the other dress at the hotel and brought it back to me so I could coach in the second game because it was cold. And so anyway, it was a wonderful day. And they just got the picture just as the water hits me.
That's great.
Where's Tucker Healy? And so he said, he had to go to the bathroom. Meanwhile, the bathroom was him dumping the water on me. So that was pretty neat. And to share it with, my assistant coaches who, again, were so instrumental in all of that, Fazio and Wright and McNally. And like I say, Jesse, I've been lucky, boy. Very, very blessed. The good Lord has really watched out for me.
And 2019, you decided to step away for 41 years. So why the decision to retire at that point?
Well, I think what was happening is that the recruiting world has changed. And I'm not, as I told you, trying to hook up to Zoom here, as not really computer savvy. So I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter. And I think that's the whole era of the recruiting world. And, so I thought that the program was suffering a little bit because of that. And there was a large senior group that year. And I thought it wouldn't be a wise idea to go out and then have someone come in with a senior group because that's difficult at times. So I thought that we'll play this year out and see, how these young. I never told anybody about it until I officially made the announcement. I think in June and early July, made July the last day. So I don't want to say it was bittersweet. It was time. Do I miss it? Yes. 50 years of it. But the blessing for me again is that the head coach there is interested in me coming back to help coach the pitchers at Ithaca College. So I've graciously accepted that responsibility and worked with them a little bit last year before it was all shut down. And then we'll go back again this year and do the same.
And the head coach happens to be your son, correct?
Yes.
David. And what does that mean that he was able to take over for you and keep on the legacy?
I mean, it's an indescribable thrill. He and we'd come to visit because he was coaching at Wells, which is nearby, and he'd come and visit. And I said, if I decide to retire, I said, are you interested in this job? And he goes, yes. I said, are you interested in this job? He said, yes. I said, are you really interested in this job? Because it's not going to be easy for you because, first of all, the program success, number one, and secondly is because you're obviously my son and you're going to be expected to, so there's going to be more pressure. Do you still think you want to do that? He goes, yes, I do. I said, okay, God bless you. I hope it can work out. So when I retired, I did not have any influence on the committee. I knew it would be probably not good for me to be involved if he were to be a candidate. So I totally stepped away and just let the process take care of itself. And again, the phone call we got from him was so exciting. My wife and I were driving to Rochester. We had to pull over and gather ourselves for a little bit. We were so thrilled that can't describe it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Coach, for doing this. This was super fun. I really enjoyed it. We enjoyed having you on. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at CrushBall and on Instagram at Portland Crush Baseball, and we will have another podcast shortly.